We've got more news to get to here on your Tuesday. We're going to talk about why Canada and the Trudeau government are basically teaming up with Israel to lay out a plan to bring 500,000 Palestinians to Canada. Did Canadians sign up for that? What about them staying in their homeland? That's a question, right? Why do Palestinians have to go to Canada? There is a place where they live. They have homes. I guess they can't stay there any longer. So we'll talk about Canada. All of those Palestinian refugees, now that Gaza is being destroyed, well, send them to Canada. Yeah, you think I'm making this up? No, it's actually an Israeli policy paper that's being floated, a concept paper that argues that Canada would be the ideal candidate to house hundreds of thousands of Palestinian refugees. So all of these Palestinian refugees to Canada. Let's bring in David KRAYDEN, who just wrote a piece on this at the Post Millennial, and of course his YouTube channel, KRAYDEN'S Right. David, so hundreds of thousands of Palestinians to Canada. Where did this come from?
Well, potentially hundreds of thousands. Let me just say, I don't doubt for a minute that Justin Trudeau would take hundreds of thousands. That hasn't been confirmed. But this Israeli intelligence ministry policy paper, this concept paper that came out and was virtually ignored by everybody. I first saw it in the Times of Israel, reported on it, and they mentioned that Canada was considered basically the only non-Mideast location in the paper because of its lenient immigration policy, meaning it has an open door immigration policy. I'm surprised they didn't apply that to the United States as well, because the United States has an
wide
open door immigration policy. So,
yeah.
But I think they were probably considering the fact that Trudeau in the past, of course, has tweeted in 2017, January 2017, he tweeted out, "Come on over, come on to Canada, refugees of the world. Doesn't matter what your beliefs are, doesn't matter what your cultural assimilation factor is. Come on to Canada. Canada has an open door for all refugees." And of course, many hundreds of thousands took him up on that offer. And of course, there is also the question of the Syrian refugees that Trudeau allowed in on bulk. And most of those people still haven't found jobs or livelihood. So Canada always leaves itself vulnerable to these sorts of things because Justin Trudeau is the prime minister, and Justin Trudeau doesn't say no. He has an open door immigration policy. He has an even wider door refugee policy. So I take this very seriously, and the fact that when the new immigration and refugees minister was asked about this at a news conference, he didn't say, "What? Whoa, don't know anything about this." He said, "Well, I don't really want to speculate, but there is a war on, and we're open to bringing people in when there's a war on."
Yeah, that's his name is Mark Miller, right? Immigration Minister Mark Miller.
Mark Miller.
When he was asked about that, I think we have some sound of that. Let's listen to his response.
Israel's Ministry of Intelligence presented their government with a concept paper that suggested Palestinians could be moved out of Gaza and that Canada itself could accept them as refugees. What do you say to that idea?
Hard to speculate on it. We are open to those fleeing war. This is a war. At the same time, it's something that is very difficult for me to speculate publicly on. I haven't read the report, would have to read it. But again, the focus, as I mentioned to your colleague, is to get a humanitarian corridor open to welcome Canadians and their families out of Gaza. It is still very much a pressing concern and one that remains unfulfilled yet.
So he's open to this. We're open to those fleeing war. This is a war, so we open our borders to this, to the tune of 500,000 Palestinians. I mean, what would that do potentially to the landscape of Canada right now? And again, when you have... I mean, and, the big question for a lot of people is, well, how do you separate those who are doing nefarious things from those who are going to be model Canadian citizens then? The answer is you can't, and you don't know.
Well, that's specifically and correctly the answer. And that's what happened last time when we brought in a lot of Syrian refugees. They weren't vetted. They were not vetted at the demarcation point, and they were not vetted when they came into Canada. And the problem, of course, is not just that we are bringing in potential terrorists. The problem is we don't have jobs or housing for them. We have a massive housing problem in Canada right now. People cannot afford to buy homes, and the average price of an apartment, a one-bedroom bachelor apartment in any Canadian city, is more than a mortgage. So where are these people going to stay? Are they going to be staying again in four-star hotels like we did the last time we had a surge in immigration, refugees at the border? Or are we going to create another tent city at the Ontario-New York border like we did the last time? But it's getting kind of cold. I don't know if that's going to be an option. But, maybe we can use heat pumps to keep them all warm. And that's,
Right.
Once again, this is all imploding on the Trudeau government. All of his bad policies, from immigration and refugees to telling people to heat their homes with heat pumps.
It's quite a legacy. And I have to imagine Trudeau's coziness with the Israeli government is, of course, a big piece of this. And, and also part of a larger World Economic Forum plan to get rid of borders and to open up and push mass immigration into these World Economic Forum backed countries, into the United States, which is openly a part of the policy papers of the World Economic Forum, and into Canada. And as a young protege of Klaus Schwab, of course, this is easily discussed and probably a great plan for the Israelis to, get rid of Gaza completely, wipe out all Palestinians who are in that area, push them out. We heard from the Heritage Minister of Israel just this weekend saying it'd be fine to send them to Ireland, to the deserts, and now to Canada. Seems like it's a perfect, it's a perfect solution.
Well, one of the problems I have with this is that the Palestinian Authority has rejected the concept, has rejected the plan. So this amounts to forced resettlement of people. And we haven't really heard that term for quite a while, but it was in the vernacular of Nazi Germany. They used to talk about forced resettlement, and what they really meant, of course, was extermination and genocide. I'm not suggesting that's the plan here, but what is Israel doing? Forcibly resettling people who don't want to go to Canada, who don't want to go to Egypt, who don't want to go to Ireland, and yet this seems to be the plan. What is Canada even linking itself to this kind of concept paper to? Why are they even entertaining the idea? Because this is forced resettlement. It's not refugees. This is not emigration from Gaza. Now, I think this is a tremendously difficult and problematic position to take on this. And I'm surprised nobody is even raising this as an issue. These people would be coming here against their will. I really think this is another issue that has to be considered. And Trudeau's been all over the map, by the way, on this issue. He started out extremely pro-Israel. He's moved quite a bit now. Now he's reaching out to Palestinians because he's worried about losing votes there. He's worried about looking like a bad guy. He wants to somehow be in the squishy middle in all this and appease everybody. But of course, just like every other policy he's pushing, he's losing support from all quarters, from both sides, who see him as a weak and a completely ineffective leader. And once again, the dominoes are falling on Justin Trudeau with this policy.
What has immigration done to Canada? I mean, I've seen what it's done to the United States, and you certainly see what it's doing to strain resources in liberal cities. And you have mayors and you have governors now saying enough is enough. We were once sanctuary cities. We can't tolerate it anymore. Stop sending people here. We'll have to declare a state of emergency. What over the past few years under Justin Trudeau's open door policy since 2000, I think he famously sent out that statement in 2017 where he said, wherever you are, come to Canada. Like, we welcome all refugees, come here, which sounds great. Like if we are Western countries destroying your country, right? We go into Somalia and destabilize Somalia. We go into Sudan and destabilize Sudan. We go into Nicaragua and destabilize Nicaragua. And then we wonder why Nicaraguans are coming on trains into the United States. I'm okay with that, because we've screwed up their country and we've destroyed them. And I think that that's probably a lesson in not destroying people's countries and in meddling in other people's countries. But how has it affected Canada over the past few years since he's pushed this open door policy?
Well, as I mentioned, it's contributed to a tremendous unemployment and a housing problem because these people are not necessarily equipped when they arrive here to get jobs. There's no jobs available and there's no housing available. But even more important, I don't care what the culture or religion is of the people coming here. I do care if they want to assimilate into Canadian culture and embrace democratic values. And what the Trudeau government has done is created a ghettoization of refugees and immigrants by sending them all to the same place. They will send them all to Toronto, to Vancouver, to Calgary, to major urban centers. Leave them there. And what are they expected to do except coalesce and isolate? And this is where radicalization can potentially occur. And this is where they become disenfranchised from a society that might be able to nourish and enrich them. And contrary to that, as I said, we've created a ghettoization. We've created little ghettos of immigrants and refugees across Canada. And this is probably why we are seeing the same kinds of protests in Canada that we just saw over the weekend in Washington, D.C. And I believe these protests are being engineered and controlled by Antifa and the far left. But there are far too many people who have come to Canada and don't understand what Canada is any more than those who come to the United States don't understand what that country is all about. And they choose to isolate because they have been forced to isolate by the government. They send them all to the same enclave. And this is a very bad mistake in immigration policy.
Yeah, creating mini nations within these countries. And you're absolutely right. It's forced resettlement. David Krayden, thank you so much. We'll see what the Trudeau government has to say about this policy paper going further as the Israeli incursion into Gaza continues. We'll see over the next couple of weeks what this looks like with those refugees because they're running out of space. And of course, they're being slaughtered in the meantime. David, great to see you. Thanks as always.
Thank you, Clayton.
Hi, this is David Krayden from Krayden's Right and Stand on Guard. Join the resistance. Resolve to resist. Become a member of this station. I've been practicing journalism in one form or another for over 30 years. I've worked in print, radio, and television for a lot of prestigious publications and media outlets. I was an Armed Forces Public Affairs officer. I worked on Parliament Hill. I know how Ottawa works. I know how corrupt the federal government can be. But you can play a part in opposing Justin Trudeau's government and Justin Trudeau's plans for Canada. You can become a part of the Krayden's Right resistance. Now, I urge you today, please support this station in any way you can. Ring that bell, subscribe, because that ensures you're at least going to continue to be able to watch these episodes. You'll beat the algorithm. But more importantly, I need your financial support. I hate to ask, but that's what I'm doing. I made a decision to pursue independent media because I believed it was the best possible route for me to take as a journalist and as a concerned citizen of Canada. So you can become a part of that. And at only $5, you can become a part of that on YouTube, on Substack, and with Buy Me a Coffee, a one-time donation. But I need your support. And from the bottom of my heart, I thank you. If you've already done that, if you're already supporting the station, thank you. But if you haven't, make that decision today